Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the UES Horizon with his morning coffee in hand. The exploration vessel had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, and the crew was getting restless. Their mission was simple enough: survey the Kepler 4M42 system for any signs of life or useful resources. So far they had found nothing but empty planets and floating rocks. "Captain, we have something on sensors," called out Lisa Brooks from her position at the tactical station. She had been with Jake for 5 years and knew her job better than anyone. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she tried to make sense of what the ship was detecting. Jake set his coffee down and moved to look over her shoulder. The main screen showed a massive object approaching their position at incredible speed. It was easily 10 times larger than their own ship and seemed to be made of some kind of dark metal that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. "What do you think it is?" Jake asked quietly. He had seen a lot of strange things during his time in space, but nothing quite like this. The object had an angular design that looked both alien and threatening at the same time. "Unknown design, Captain," Lisa replied while running more scans. "The hull material is something I have never seen before, and they are using a propulsion system that does not match anything in our database." Danny Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station with concern written across his face. He was the youngest member of the senior crew, but had proven himself capable during their previous missions. "Captain, the energy readings from that ship are off the charts. Whatever they are using for power makes our fusion reactors look like candles." Amy Carter turned from her communications console with wide eyes. She had been trying to establish contact with the unknown vessel since it appeared on their sensors. "Captain, I am picking up transmissions, but the language is completely foreign. The computer is trying to translate, but it will take time." Jake nodded and moved to his command chair. First contact situations were always delicate and required careful handling. Humanity had been searching for other intelligent life for centuries, and now they might have finally found it. "Put me on all frequencies, Amy. Let me try to establish peaceful contact." The communications officer worked quickly to open channels on every known frequency. "You are live, Captain." Jake cleared his throat and spoke in his most diplomatic voice. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel UES Horizon. We come in peace and seek only knowledge and friendship with other intelligent species. Please, respond if you can understand this message." For several minutes there was only silence. Then the massive alien ship began to slow down and change course toward their position. Jake felt his heart rate increase as the vessel grew larger on their main screen. Whatever species had built this ship clearly possessed technology far beyond human capabilities. "Captain, I am getting a response," Amy said with excitement in her voice. "The computer has managed to partially translate their language. They are requesting that we prepare to be boarded." "Boarded," Jake repeated with surprise. Most first contact protocols involved maintaining distance while establishing communication. The idea of allowing unknown aliens onto their ship seemed dangerous. "Ask them if we can meet on neutral ground instead." Amy sent the message and waited for a response. When it came, her face went pale. "Captain, they say that resistance is useless and that we will comply with their demands or be destroyed. They are calling us a weak species that exists only to serve their empire." Jake felt anger rise in his chest but forced himself to remain calm. These aliens clearly did not understand human nature, or they would not be making such threats. "Lisa, what are their weapons capabilities?" The tactical officer ran another scan of the approaching ship. "Multiple energy weapon arrays, Captain. Each one could probably destroy our ship with a single blast. They also have some kind of shield system that I cannot penetrate with our sensors." "Danny, how long would it take to get our engines back online if we needed to run?" Jake asked his engineer. "About 10 minutes, Captain, but I doubt we could outrun something that advanced," Danny replied honestly. The alien ship moved closer until it filled their entire main screen. Jake could see smaller craft launching from its hull and heading directly toward the UES Horizon. Each one looked like it carried enough firepower to reduce their ship to scrap metal. "Captain, they are demanding an immediate response," Amy said with fear creeping into her voice. "They want us to lower our shields and prepare to surrender." Jake stood up from his command chair and looked at his crew. These were good people who had volunteered to explore the unknown reaches of space. They deserved better than to be treated like slaves by an alien empire that valued only strength and conquest. "Open a channel, Amy," he said with determination in his voice. "Channel open, Captain." Jake looked directly at the main screen where the alien ship dominated their view. "This is Captain Morrison of the United Earth ship Horizon. We are explorers and scientists seeking knowledge, not conflict. We will not surrender to threats or accept slavery. If you wish to establish peaceful relations, we are willing to talk. If not, then you have made a terrible mistake." The response came quickly, and it was not what Jake hoped to hear. Amy translated with a shaking voice. "Captain, they are laughing at us. They say that all weak species make empty threats before accepting their fate. They are ordering their attack craft to disable our engines and weapons." Lisa turned from her station with panic in her eyes. "Captain, multiple targets incoming. They are not responding to our hails." Jake knew they were out of options. The UES Horizon was an exploration vessel, not a warship, and stood no chance against superior alien technology. But he would not go down without sending a message back to Earth. "Amy, can you get a transmission out to Luna Command?" "I can try, Captain, but those ships will reach us in 30 seconds. "Do it," Jake ordered. "Tell them what we found and what happened here. Make sure they know these aliens consider humans weak. And plan to conquer Earth." Amy worked frantically at her console while the alien attack craft grew larger on the screen. "Message sent, Captain. It will take 3 months to reach home." The first energy blast struck the UES Horizon like the hammer of an angry god. The ship shook violently, and emergency lights began flashing throughout the bridge. Danny reported massive damage to their hull and life support systems. "Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. He called out over the sound of alarms. "We are losing atmosphere fast." A second blast tore through their engine section, and the ship began to spin out of control. Jake held onto his chair as gravity failed and loose objects began floating around the bridge. He could see his crew fighting to stay conscious as the ship died around them. With his last breath, Jake looked at the alien ship on the screen and smiled grimly. These aliens thought humans were weak because they offered peace instead of war. They had no idea what humanity was capable of when threatened. Earth would be ready for them when they arrived, and then these arrogant aliens would learn what it meant to fight a species that had clawed its way to the top of their planet's food chain through pure determination and violence. The UES Horizon exploded in a brilliant flash of light that could be seen for millions of miles. The alien commander watched the destruction with satisfaction and ordered his fleet to set course for the human homeworld. He expected the conquest to take only a few days once they arrived. He had no idea how wrong he was. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the communication center at Luna Command, watching the emergency beacon replay for the 5th time. The message from Captain Morrison was clear, but terrifying. Hostile aliens had destroyed the UES Horizon and were likely heading toward Earth with conquest in mind. The transmission had taken 3 months to reach them, which meant the alien fleet could arrive at any time. "How reliable is this information?" asked General Rick Hayes as he entered the secure briefing room. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars from the resource wars that had ended 20 years ago. Behind him walked Dr. Patricia Wells, who ran the Military Research Division, and Colonel Steve Murphy, who commanded Special Operations. Kate turned from the screen with a grim expression. "Jake Morrison was one of our best captains, General. He would not send a warning like this unless the threat was real. According to his final transmission, these aliens have technology far beyond ours and view humans as a weak species suitable only for slavery." Dr. Wells moved to the tactical display and began entering data from the beacon. The energy signatures Jake recorded suggest weapons and propulsion systems at least 50 years ahead of our current technology. If they have a fleet of ships like the one that destroyed the Horizon, we could be facing complete annihilation. Colonel Murphy crossed his arms and studied the information with a skeptical expression. "Maybe they are advanced, but that does not mean they understand how to fight humans. Every species we have encountered in our history underestimated us at first." "We have not encountered any other species, Steve," Kate reminded him. "This is first contact, and it has already gone badly wrong. The colonel smiled in a way that made the others uncomfortable. Admiral, with respect, we have been preparing for this day for decades. Project Endgame has given us capabilities that no alien empire would expect from what they see as a primitive species. Dr. Wells nodded in agreement and activated a holographic display showing Earth and its surrounding space. The public thinks our space program is focused on exploration and colonization, but that has never been the whole truth. Every probe we have sent out has been gathering intelligence on potential threats. Every defense satellite we have launched carries more than communication equipment. Kate studied the display with new understanding. Hidden among the civilian infrastructure were thousands of military assets that most people did not know existed. Asteroid mining stations that were actually weapons platforms. Research facilities that were really military bases. Communication satellites that could jam or intercept any transmission in the solar system. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked quietly. General Hayes answered with pride in his voice. "Since we first detected artificial signals from other star systems 40 years ago. We knew that any species capable of interstellar travel would have military technology beyond our understanding. The only way to survive was to prepare defenses they would never see coming." Dr. Wells brought up another display showing troop movements across Earth and the lunar colonies. "We have been quietly evacuating civilian populations from major cities over the past week. The official story is emergency preparedness drills, but we are actually moving people to underground shelters that can survive orbital bombardment, Colonel." Murphy activated his personal communicator and began sending coded messages to military units around the solar system. Captain Ben Foster and his Marine Battalion have been training in zero-gravity combat for 5 years. They specialize in boarding actions and close-quarters fighting. Lieutenant Sam Davis leads our best engineering teams who can disable alien technology from the inside. Kate felt a mixture of relief and concern as she learned about the secret preparations. "Why was I not informed about Project Endgame before now?" "Because, Admiral, your job was to maintain the public image of peaceful exploration while we prepared for war," General Hayes explained. "Every diplomatic mission you sent out gathered intelligence on alien capabilities while appearing completely innocent. Every scientific expedition carried hidden military observers who studied potential battlefield conditions. Dr. Wells pulled up files showing decades of military research hidden within civilian projects. The fusion reactors that power our cities can be converted to weapons in hours. The terraforming equipment we use on Mars doubles as environmental warfare tools. Even our medical research has produced biological agents that could cripple an alien invasion force." "You are talking about chemical and biological weapons," Kate said with horror. "Those are banned by every treaty on Earth." Colonel Murphy looked at her with cold eyes. "Admiral, those treaties apply to fighting other humans. When an alien empire threatens to enslave our entire species, we use every weapon available to us. The Geneva Convention does not protect aliens who want to destroy human civilization." General Hayes activated the main display to show the outer solar system where hidden defense platforms waited in the asteroid belt. "We have been watching for threats from space for 40 years, Admiral. Long-range sensors detected the alien fleet when it entered our system 3 days ago. They are moving slowly and appear confident that we pose no threat to them." 3 days. Kate repeated with alarm. "Why was I not told immediately?" "Because we needed time to position our forces without alerting the enemy," Dr. Wells explained. "The aliens are using passive sensors to study Earth, and they see exactly what we want them to see, a peaceful planet with primitive defenses that will surrender without a fight." Colonel Murphy brought up tactical displays showing the positions of human forces throughout the solar system. "Captain Ben Foster has teams hidden on every major asteroid between here and Mars. When the aliens get close enough, we will board their ships and destroy them from within. Sergeant Nicole Price leads our best infiltration specialists who can move through enemy vessels like ghosts." Kate studied the battle plans with growing amazement. Every detail had been planned and rehearsed for decades. Civilian ships that could transform into attack vessels, mining equipment that doubled as weapons, research stations that were actually military command centers. The entire human space infrastructure was a carefully disguised war machine waiting to spring its trap. "How many people know about this?" she asked. "Every military officer above the rank of major," General Hayes replied. Selected civilian leaders in government and industry, the crews of our deep space vessels who have been gathering intelligence for years. Perhaps 50,000 people total. Dr. Wells activated another display showing psychological profiles of different alien species based on intercepted communications. We have been studying galactic politics through their own transmissions for 20 years. The Zephyrian Empire that destroyed the horizon has conquered 17 star systems by overwhelming their enemies with superior technology and demanding immediate surrender. They expect us to behave like every other species they have encountered, Colonel Murphy added. Civilized beings who value individual life over species survival. They have no idea that humans evolved as pack hunters who will sacrifice anything to protect the group. Kate realized that while she had been conducting peaceful exploration missions, the military had been preparing for interstellar war. Every human ship in space carried hidden weapons. Every space station could become a fortress. Every civilian colony had underground bunkers stocked with supplies for years of siege warfare. What happens when they arrive? She asked. General Hayes smiled grimly. They will find what appears to be a helpless planet protected only by primitive satellites and a few patrol ships. They will demand our surrender and expect us to comply like every other species they have conquered. Instead, they will discover what it means to fight a species that has spent its entire evolutionary history as the most dangerous predator on its planet. Dr. Wells brought up the final display showing estimated alien fleet strength versus hidden human defenses. They are bringing 200 ships, Admiral, but they are expecting to face a civilization that will surrender rather than fight. They have no idea that we have been preparing for this battle since before most of their crew was born. Colonel Murphy checked his communicator as reports came in from units across the solar system. All teams are in position, Admiral. Captain Lucy Chen has her hunter squadrons ready to pursue any ships that try to escape. Commander Ryan Hall has deep space interceptors positioned at every possible jump point. When this battle begins, there will be no survivors to carry word back to their empire. Kate looked around the room at the faces of people who had spent decades preparing for this moment. And after we destroy their fleet, then, Admiral, we send our own message to the galaxy, General Hayes replied. We let every alien civilization know that Earth is protected by the most dangerous species in the galaxy, a species that appears peaceful until threatened and then becomes absolutely ruthless in defending itself. The warning klaxons began sounding throughout Luna Command as sensors detected the alien fleet approaching the outer solar system. Kate took her position at the command center, knowing that the next few hours would determine the future of humanity. Either they would prove themselves worthy of respect among the stars, or they would die fighting as their ancestors had always done. The trap was set, and the hunters were waiting. War Commander Thexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive blue planet grow larger on the main display. His armada of 200 warships had traveled for 3 months to reach this backwater system, and he was eager to complete another easy conquest. The humans appeared even weaker than his scouts had reported, with only a handful of patrol vessels and some communication satellites protecting their homeworld. Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the human government, reported his communications officer. The young Zephyrian had served on 17 conquest missions and knew the standard procedure for accepting surrender from inferior species. Put it on the main screen, Thexvar ordered with bored confidence. He expected to see a terrified human leader begging for mercy and offering to submit to Zephyrian rule without resistance. Instead, he saw a middle-aged woman in military uniform who looked directly at him with cold determination. I am Admiral Kate Sullivan of the United Earth Defense Force, the human said without any sign of fear. You destroyed our exploration vessel and murdered innocent people who offered you friendship. You have made a terrible mistake coming here, Thexvar laughed along with his bridge crew at what they saw as pathetic bravado from a species that clearly had no understanding of their situation. Human female, your species exists now only to serve the Zephyrian Empire. Order your vessels to stand down and prepare your planet for occupation. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. The human admiral smiled, in a way that made Thexvar feel unexpectedly uncomfortable. Commander, you are about to learn why peaceful species survive while aggressive ones become extinct. Every empire that has tried to conquer Earth has learned the same lesson. We are not weak because we prefer peace. We prefer peace because we know what we become when forced to fight. The transmission ended and Thexvar ordered his fleet to advance toward the inner system. His sensors showed only empty space between his position and Earth with no sign of the massive defense fleet that should have been protecting such an important planet. The humans were even more pathetic than he had imagined. Commander, we are detecting some unusual readings from the asteroid belt, his sensor officer reported with mild confusion. There appear to be several large metallic objects hidden among the rocks, but they are not emitting any energy signatures. Probably mining equipment or research stations, Thexvar replied dismissively. These humans are too primitive to pose any real threat to our forces. As the Zephyrian fleet passed the orbit of Mars, the trap that had been waiting for decades finally sprung. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly erupted with activity. As hundreds of human vessels emerged from concealment using advanced stealth technology, the mining ships revealed hidden weapon arrays. The research stations deployed military sensors. The communication satellites began jamming Zephyrian transmissions across all frequencies. Battle stations, Thexvar shouted as his flagship shook from the first human attack. But instead of the massive energy blasts he expected, the humans were using smaller precision strikes designed to disable rather than destroy. His communications went dead. His long-range sensors failed. His navigation systems began showing false readings. Captain Ben Foster led the first wave of human boarding parties as small stealth craft attached themselves to Zephyrian hull like parasites. His Marine battalion had trained for years to fight in the confined spaces of alien vessels using tactics no civilized species would consider honorable. They cut through armor plating with plasma torches and swarmed into enemy ships through holes barely large enough for human bodies. The Zephyrians were larger and stronger than humans, but they had evolved on a high-gravity world that made them slow and clumsy in zero-gravity environments. Ben and his Marines moved through the alien ships like deadly shadows, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the enemy could respond. They did not fight with honor or give their opponents a chance to surrender. They simply killed efficiently and moved on to the next target. Lieutenant Sam Davis and his engineering teams followed the Marines into the breached Zephyrian vessels with one mission: disable everything that made the ships function. Cut power, cables, destroy computer cores, release toxic chemicals into the life support systems. The humans did not want to capture alien technology. They wanted to make sure no ship in the enemy fleet could escape to carry word of their defeat back to the Zephyrian Empire. Sergeant Nicole Price led infiltration specialists who had studied Zephyrian ship designs from captured transmissions for 20 years. They knew exactly where to find the command centers and engineering sections. They moved through maintenance shafts and utility corridors that the larger aliens could not access. When they reached their targets, they planted explosive charges and disappeared before anyone knew they had been there. War Commander Thexvar watched in horror as his mighty fleet began falling apart around him. Ship after ship went dark as human. Boarding parties disabled their systems from within. The few vessels that tried to return fire found their weapons offline or targeting the wrong coordinates. His disciplined formations dissolved into chaos as individual captains lost contact with fleet command and began making desperate decisions on their own. "How are they doing this?" he demanded from his tactical officer, who was frantically trying to coordinate a defense against an enemy that refused to fight like a proper military force. "Sir, the humans are not engaging in ship-to-ship combat," came the confused reply. "They are boarding our vessels and destroying them from inside. Our weapons cannot target enemies who are already aboard our own ships." Thexvar realized with growing panic that everything his species knew about warfare was useless against an enemy that fought without honor or respect for military tradition. The humans treated war like a hunting expedition, where the only goal was to kill the prey by any means necessary. They used their smaller size to access areas of Zephyrian ships that were never meant to be defended. They coordinated their attacks with pack tactics that overwhelmed individual defenders through sheer numbers. Captain Lucy Chen commanded the human hunter squadrons that had been positioned throughout the outer system for exactly this moment. Her ships were smaller and faster than the Zephyrian vessels, but carried weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. She wanted the alien crews alive so they could witness the complete destruction of their fleet and carry that message back to their empire. The battle turned into a massacre as human forces demonstrated the difference between a species that fought for territory and one that fought for survival. The Zephyrians had conquered other civilizations through superior technology and overwhelming force, but they had never faced an enemy that treated war as a natural extension of the hunt. Humans did not fight to prove their strength or gain honor. They fought to eliminate threats to their pack, and they did so with terrifying efficiency. Commander Ryan Hall led deep space interceptors positioned at every possible escape route from the solar system. Any Zephyrian ship that tried to flee found itself facing human vessels that had been waiting in perfect ambush positions for hours. The aliens discovered that humans had turned their entire star system into a carefully planned killing field, where every asteroid and satellite played a role in destroying the invasion fleet. Dr. Patricia Wells coordinated the psychological warfare campaign from Luna Command, broadcasting the destruction of each Zephyrian vessel to the survivors on frequencies they could not block. She wanted the alien crews to understand that their defeat was not the result of superior technology but superior tactics. Humans had studied their enemy for decades, while the Zephyrians had dismissed them as a weak species, unworthy of serious preparation. As his flagship began losing power and life support, Thexvar realized that his empire had made a fatal error in judgment. The humans were not weak because they offered peace. They were dangerous precisely because they understood when peace was no longer possible. They had spent their entire evolutionary history as persistence hunters, who chased their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Now, they were hunting the most advanced military fleet in the galaxy, with the same patient determination their ancestors had used to become the dominant species on their planet. The great Zephyrian armada that had conquered 17 star systems was being systematically destroyed by what appeared to be civilian miners and research scientists. But these were not civilians. They were the descendants of the most successful predators in Earth's history, and they had prepared for this battle with the same careful planning their ancestors had used to hunt mammoth across frozen continents. When the last Zephyrian weapon fell silent and the final alien ship went dark, Admiral Kate Sullivan opened a channel to the surviving crew members, scattered throughout the wreckage of their fleet. Her message was simple and direct. You came here expecting to find weakness, but you found the apex predators of our galaxy. Remember what you have seen here today, and tell your empire what happens when they mistake human mercy for human weakness. The surviving Zephyrian ships tried to escape from the solar system in scattered groups, but Admiral Kate Sullivan had anticipated their desperation. For 40 years, human strategists had studied every possible retreat route from Earth and positioned forces accordingly. What the aliens thought would be their escape became the final phase of their destruction. Captain Lucy Chen received the order to begin the hunting phase as her squadron moved to intercept the fleeing enemy vessels. Her ships had been designed specifically for this moment using technology that no other species had ever developed. Where most civilizations built massive warships for direct combat, humans had created smaller, faster vessels that could pursue their prey across vast distances without losing contact. All units, this is Hunting Pack Leader, she transmitted to her scattered forces. The prey is running, but they cannot hide. Begin persistence protocols and remember that none of them leave this system alive. The human tactics were based on millions of years of evolutionary programming that had made their species the most successful hunters on Earth. They did not try to catch their prey immediately, but instead followed at a steady pace while the enemy exhausted itself trying to escape. Ship by ship, the fleeing Zephyrians found themselves being pursued by humans who never seemed to tire and never gave up the chase. Lieutenant Commander Tony Grant led one of the pursuit squadrons, chasing a group of 20 Zephyrian vessels toward the outer system. His ships maintained perfect formation while the enemy vessels spread out in panic and burned their engines at maximum power trying to reach jump distance. The aliens did not understand that humans had been practicing this exact scenario for decades. "Sir, the lead enemy ship is showing signs of engine failure," reported his sensor officer. "They have been running their propulsion systems beyond safe limits for 6 hours." Tony smiled with the satisfaction of a successful predator. close to boarding range and prepare assault teams. These aliens are about to learn what their victims felt when the Zephyrian Empire came calling. The first alien ship to suffer complete engine failure found itself surrounded by human vessels that moved with coordinated precision. Marines in powered armor cut through the hull and swarmed into the ship while the crew was still trying to restart their engines. The Zephyrians fought bravely, but they were exhausted from hours of desperate flight while the humans were fresh and eager for combat. War Commander Thexvar watched from his crippled flagship as his scattered fleet was hunted down piece by piece across the solar system. The humans were using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare, but they were devastatingly effective. Instead of quick, decisive battles, his people were being worn down through relentless pursuit until they could no longer resist capture. "Sir, we are receiving surrender offers from 12 of our remaining ships," his communications officer reported, with defeat in his voice. "Their crews are requesting permission to negotiate terms with the human forces." Thexvar closed his eyes as the magnitude of his failure became clear. The Zephyrian Empire had built its reputation on swift, overwhelming victories that crushed enemy resistance before it could organize. But humans fought like the pack hunters they had evolved from, and they turned every battle into an endurance contest that favored their natural advantages. Dr. Patricia Wells coordinated the psychological warfare campaign from her command center on Luna, watching as human forces systematically broke the morale of their enemies. Each captured alien crew was forced to witness detailed recordings of their fleet's destruction before being released to spread word of humanity's true nature throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, the enemy is beginning to understand what they face," she reported to Kate Sullivan. Intercepted communications show growing panic among their crews as they realize this is not a conventional military defeat, but a hunting expedition, where they are the prey. Sergeant Nicole Price led boarding parties onto captured Zephyrian vessels with orders to gather intelligence rather than simply destroy everything they found. The humans wanted detailed information about alien military capabilities and the locations of other species that might pose future threats to Earth. Every computer core was copied. Every database was analyzed. Every prisoner was questioned until they revealed everything they knew about galactic politics. The surviving Zephyrian crews discovered that humans approached warfare with the same methodical patience they used for everything else. There was no rage or hatred in their actions, just the calm determination of predators who had found dangerous prey that needed to be eliminated. The aliens began to understand that they had attacked a species that viewed their entire civilization as a threat to be removed, rather than an enemy to be defeated. Captain Ben Foster supervised the systematic destruction of alien weapons and technology aboard captured vessels. His teams used plasma torches to cut apart every piece of advanced equipment while leaving life support and basic navigation systems intact. The humans did not want to capture Zephyrian technology. They wanted to ensure that the survivors could return home but could never threaten anyone again. "Captain, these aliens have energy weapons that are decades ahead of our current capabilities," reported one of his engineers. "Should we not study their technology instead of destroying it?" Ben shook his head firmly. "Our orders are clear. We destroy their weapons and send them home as living proof of what happens when someone threatens Earth. Let them tell their empire about human tactics, not human technology." Commander Ryan Hall positioned his deep space interceptors at the edge of the solar system where long-range sensors could detect any attempt by surviving aliens to call for reinforcements. His ships carried experimental weapons designed to disable enemy communications across interstellar distances. Any Zephyrian vessel that tried to transmit a distress signal found their equipment mysteriously failing. "Sir, we have detected 3 enemy ships attempting to reach minimum safe distance for hyperspace jump," his tactical officer reported. "Their engines are damaged, but they might still escape the system." Ryan activated his weapon systems and targeted the fleeing vessels with electromagnetic pulse warheads that could disable alien technology without destroying the ships themselves. "Fire all tubes. Make sure they understand that no one leaves here without our permission." The final phase of the battle demonstrated humanity's mastery of 3-dimensional thinking in space combat. While the Zephyrians focused on reaching jump points that would allow escape to hyperspace, the humans had positioned forces throughout the entire outer system. Every asteroid belt and debris field concealed hidden weapons platforms. Every seemingly empty region of space contained cloaked patrol vessels waiting to intercept fleeing enemies. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the tactical display as the last free Zephyrian ships were surrounded and forced to surrender. The entire alien invasion fleet had been neutralized in less than 12 hours, using tactics that no other species had ever developed. Humanity had proven that superior technology meant nothing when facing an enemy that understood how to hunt. "Admiral, we have received surrender from all remaining enemy vessels," General Hayes reported with satisfaction. "Total human casualties are 43 wounded and 7 dead. Enemy casualties are estimated at over 30,000 with 15,000 prisoners." Kate nodded as she considered the implications of their victory. "What about their leadership?" "War Commander Thexavar is alive and in custody aboard his flagship," Colonel Murphy replied. "His senior staff survived, but their fleet command structure has been completely destroyed. These aliens will never again pose a threat to human civilization." The battle had ended, but the real message was just beginning. Every surviving Zephyrian would return to their empire carrying stories of the day their mighty fleet encountered the apex predators of the galaxy. They would tell other species about the humans who appeared weak and peaceful until threatened, and then became the most dangerous enemy anyone had ever faced. Dr. Wells began preparing the final phase of their psychological warfare campaign. The Thai captured aliens would be sent home with detailed recordings of their defeat and a simple message for any other aggressive species. Earth was protected by hunters who had spent millions of years becoming the most successful predators in their galaxy, and they were prepared to demonstrate those skills to anyone foolish enough to threaten human civilization. The hunt was over, and the message would soon spread throughout the stars. War Commander Thexvar stood in the cargo bay of his damaged flagship, surrounded by the remnants of what had once been the most feared military force in the galaxy. His crew looked at him with hollow eyes that had seen their entire understanding of warfare shattered in a single day. The humans had destroyed 200 warships using tactics that violated every principle of civilized combat, but they had been devastatingly effective. Captain Julie Thompson of the UES Retribution walked slowly around the captured Zephyrian officers, studying each one with the patient gaze of a predator, examining its prey. She wore the simple gray uniform of the Earth Defense Force, but her presence filled the room with an authority that made the alien prisoners instinctively step back. Behind her stood Marines in powered armor, carrying weapons that seemed primitive compared to Zephyrian technology but had proven far more deadly in actual combat. "Commander Thexvar," she said in perfect Zephyrian, which surprised the alien officer. "I hope you have learned something valuable during your visit to our solar system." The war commander tried to maintain his dignity despite the complete destruction of his fleet. "Human female, your species fights without honor, using tactics that no civilized race would employ. You are barbarians who have somehow acquired advanced technology." Julie smiled in the same cold way that Admiral Sullivan had when first addressing the invasion fleet. "Commander, you are absolutely correct. We are barbarians who evolved from the most successful pack hunters in our planet's history. We spent millions of years becoming the apex predators of our world, and we have applied those same skills to warfare. Among the stars." She activated a holographic display showing detailed recordings of the battle from multiple angles. Thexvar watched in horror as human forces systematically destroyed his fleet, using coordinated attacks that treated war as an extension of the hunt. His proud warriors had been reduced to prey animals fleeing in panic while persistent predators wore them down through relentless pursuit. "Your empire has conquered 17 star systems by overwhelming primitive species with superior technology," Julie continued. "But you have never faced an enemy that studied your tactics for decades. Before you arrived, we knew exactly how you would attack, and we prepared accordingly." Dr. Patricia Wells entered the cargo bay carrying data tablets containing intelligence gathered from captured Zephyrian computers. Her teams had spent days analyzing alien databases, and now understood the full scope of the threat that Earth had just eliminated. The Zephyrian Empire controlled hundreds of worlds through fear and superior firepower, but their military doctrine had never adapted to face an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. "Commander, your people have been monitoring. human transmissions for years, she told Thexvar. But you only paid attention to our civilian communications and scientific broadcasts. You never noticed the military frequencies or the intelligence-gathering operations that we conducted throughout your territory. Thexvar stared at the human scientist with growing understanding of how completely his empire had been outmaneuvered. You have been spying on us. We have been studying every hostile species in this region of the galaxy for 40 years, Patricia replied matter-of-factly. Your empire was identified as a potential threat to human civilization, so we prepared accordingly. Every transmission you sent was intercepted and analyzed. Every tactical manual was translated and studied. We knew your fleet composition and battle doctrine before you left your home system. Admiral Kate Sullivan joined the group of humans confronting the captured alien commander. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had just proven that humanity deserved a place among the star-faring civilizations of the galaxy. Behind her walked General Hayes and Colonel Murphy, who had spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. Commander, you are going to return to your empire with a message, Kate informed the alien officer. You will tell them what you have witnessed here, and you will make sure they understand that Earth is protected by the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. And if we refuse to carry your message, Thexvar asked with what remained of his pride. Colonel. Murphy stepped forward with the same cold smile that seemed to be standard among human military officers. Commander, you misunderstand the situation. You are not our prisoners. You are our messengers. We are sending you home specifically to tell other species what happens when they threaten human civilization. The captured Zephyrians were escorted to their remaining ships, which had been repaired just enough to make the journey back to their home system. Their weapons had been completely removed and their military equipment destroyed, but their navigation systems worked perfectly. The humans wanted to make sure they could find their way home to deliver their message. Captain Ben Foster supervised the final preparations as human engineers finished installing special communication equipment aboard the alien vessels. The devices would broadcast detailed recordings of the battle to any ship or space station they encountered during their journey home. Every species in Zephyrian territory would learn exactly what had happened to their supposedly invincible fleet. Captain, why are you letting us leave? Asked one of the younger Zephyrian officers who still could not understand human tactics. Your people could study our technology and learn to build more advanced weapons. Ben looked at the alien with the patience of someone explaining obvious facts to a child. Officer, we do not need your technology. We have something far more valuable. We have the knowledge that comes from millions of years of successful hunting. Your weapons are impressive, but your tactics are predictable. Any species that relies on superior technology instead of superior strategy will eventually face an enemy they cannot defeat. The last Zephyrian ship departed the solar system carrying its cargo of defeated warriors back to an empire that would soon learn it had awakened something far more dangerous than any previous enemy they had faced. The recordings of their fleet's destruction would spread throughout galactic civilization, showing every species exactly what humanity was capable of when threatened. Lieutenant Sam Davis and his engineering teams began the next phase of human expansion into space. Hidden construction facilities throughout the solar system activated to begin building a new generation of vessels designed not for exploration, but for the defense of human territory. The ships would carry no advanced alien technology, but they would be crewed by the descendants of Earth's most successful predators. Dr. Wells established monitoring stations to track the spread of humanity's reputation throughout the galaxy. Intercepted, communications from dozens of species showed growing awareness that a new power had emerged among the stars. Civilizations that had considered attacking Earth quickly changed their plans when they learned what had happened to the mighty Zephyrian fleet. Admiral, the psychological campaign is working beyond our expectations, she reported to Kate Sullivan. 3 separate empires have withdrawn their scout fleets from human space, and 2 others have sent diplomatic messages requesting peaceful trade relations. The news from Zephyrian territory was even more encouraging. The alien empire had collapsed into civil war as subject species rebelled against their oppressors, inspired by humanity's example of how to deal with aggressive neighbors. Worlds that had been conquered decades ago suddenly discovered that their masters were not as invincible as they claimed. Captain Lucy Chen received orders to establish the first human monitoring stations outside the solar system. Her ships would patrol the nearby star systems, ensuring that no other aggressive species attempted to threaten Earth while humanity continued its expansion among the stars. The age of human exploration was over, and the age of human dominance had begun. Admiral Sullivan stood on the observation deck of Luna Command watching construction crews build the memorial to Captain Jake Morrison and his crew. The brave explorer, who had sent humanity's first warning about hostile aliens, would be remembered as the man whose sacrifice had triggered humanity's emergence as a galactic power. His final transmission had given Earth the time needed to prepare for war, and his death had motivated an entire species to prove they were worthy of survival among the stars. The memorial inscription read simply, "They thought we were weak, but Jake Morrison showed them our strength." The UES Horizon was the last human ship to die without taking enemies with her. Below those words was a longer message that would be transmitted to every species in the galaxy. Earth is protected by hunters who have spent their entire evolutionary history becoming the apex predators of their world. We prefer peace, but we are prepared for war. Choose wisely. In the months that followed, humanity's reputation spread throughout galactic civilization, carried by survivors of the Zephyrian fleet and by species who had witnessed the recordings of their destruction. The message was clear and simple. Humans appeared peaceful because they understood the true cost of war, but when forced to fight, they became the most dangerous enemy anyone had ever faced. The galaxy had learned that there was a new apex predator among the stars, and it wore the face of the supposedly weak species from the small blue planet in an unremarkable star system. Humanity had claimed its place in the galactic community not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but